Welcome to Tech Tales. I'm Corbin Davenport,
And I'm Cody Toombs.
and today we are talking about internet time and the Sputnik 99 satellite. Those are, yes, those are connected.
This is feeling like a bit of a 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon situation, but okay.
So, do you know anything about the company Swatch or internet time? Have you heard of this?
Well, I mean, I understand the concept of internet time. The Swatch, weirdly, while technically a thing that happened during my life, I really have no awareness or context on Swatch. I just know it was a brand.
Yeah, I'm not a watch guy either. So this is a warning ahead of time. Please don't yell at me about getting like watch company lore wrong. I've got the important bits. That's all that matters. Leave me alone. So before we get to internet time, I need to briefly talk about Swatch. Swatch is a Swiss watch company that was founded in 1983 at a time when digital watches had captured most of the market share from traditional mechanical watches. Swatch's first few models were affordable and had pretty big marketing campaigns, so the watches quickly became popular. And Swatch has made a lot of designs over the years, ranging from more traditional looking analog watches to brightly colored sports and kids watches. And it has released a few digital watches over the years. So in 1998, Swatch introduced this thing called Internet Time, which they also called dot beats time, or sometimes it's also just called beats time. Swatch made Internet Time as a different way of keeping track of time through the day instead of having 24 hours in one day and each of those hours having 60 minutes. Internet Time divided each day into exactly 1,000 beats, making each beat exactly 1 minute and 26.4 seconds long. There were 365,000 beats each year. Noon was at 500 beats. Midnight was at 0 beats. So just splitting a day into 1,000 chunks. That was internet time. And internet time didn't use time zones or daylight savings time shifts. The time was the same everywhere in the world. So it's internet time in that it's the same time globally because, the internet is also global.
I honestly, I'm just running through my head all the permutations of how this works, and it's occurring to me how incredibly terrible this is. But go on.
Yeah. Yes, you're starting to get it. Each day in dot beats started at midnight in the town where Swatch was located in Switzerland, which was also UTC plus one, which is Central European time, West African time. And usually when internet time was displayed, it was shown after an at symbol. So 250 beats after midnight would be labeled as at 250. Swatch started selling digital watches showing internet time, and the first units were handed out to the 94 participants in the Junior Summit of 1998. I've got an article from the MIT from November 18th, 1998, and you can read a snippet. There you go.
The 94 young participants in Junior Summit 98 expected to have a good time when they traveled to MIT from more than 50 different countries around the world for this week's Media Lab conference on children's visions of the future uses of technology. Just before blastoff, Jan Gamard, president of Swatch Group US, gave each youth a whole new concept of time. Programmed to tell internet time, each Swatch watch displays regular old-fashioned time plus a window showing a number between 1 and 1,000. Internet time divides the day into 1,000 units, or beats, with midnight at 1,000 and noon at 500. Created by Swatch, the Meridian passes through Swatch headquarters in Switzerland to ease the hassles of cyber globe trotting. that is all hyphenated, by the way. The new watches took their first consumer voyage this week. Mr. Gamard urged the summiteers to wear the internet watches during their week at MIT and report on Saturday with suggestions for improving it.
All right, so yeah, that's a little bit of a weird way to start selling watches, but go for it, I guess.
I mean, Twitter started with tech nerds and people who didn't have good internet access. So, a lot of companies have started with weird little with weird niche groups that you wouldn't expect necessarily be the the expected trendsetters, I guess.
Yeah, definitely the main motivator behind this, and they mentioned it in that snippet, was this was for the internet generation, as it were. It was mostly intended for online communications because people could talk across different time zones and just use the same time format, which, if you've ever tried to plan an event across several different time zones or had to like join a call where a time was set in a different time zone or anything, this is a pain.
I mean, you and I have done plenty of calls with PR people and for events, and yes, I can think of nothing that would be more ideal than abolishing time zones.
Yeah. There's some logic to it. It didn't work out, but like I can see the vision, especially because internet time did not use daylight savings time, which really trips you up on top of multiple time zones because different regions will have daylight savings or won't have daylight savings, and then sometimes it starts at different times in some places. So I don't like daylight savings time. So I like that part of this.
If I recall correctly, the change of date that's a lot more recent. I believe the entire world, at least the parts that recognize daylight savings time, they used to all be on the same days.
Okay.
At least back in, pre 2000. I don't remember when that date was added. I want to say that was in the mid or late 2000s. But anyway, yeah. So at least everyone used to be on the same days for that, I believe.
Okay. Kind of the point of internet time was that you could just talk to people online and be like, hey, you ready to jump on a game at 800 beats? And just everyone probably still have to convert it somehow because it's like, oh, well, my like clock everywhere says 4 p.m., so I need to figure out what that is.
Yeah.
But it eliminated some variables, I guess. So Swatch also created a computer application for showing the current time. I think it was like in your Windows taskbar or something. And I've got some watches for you to look at that used internet time.
Oh boy.
These watch designs are crazy. I don't know what Swatch was on in the 90s, but it's like the most late 90s, early 2000s wavy designs you've ever seen.
No, I was gonna say that this is what Swatch was kind of known for, and they were definitely on the 90s.
All right, so this one is the Webmaster 2 from 1998. And also, these watches that we're looking at will be in the show notes. If you want to look at them, you can also just search them. So this one is, yeah, these are all digital watches. So this one it's got a digital LCD screen, but it's round. This one has a design that seemed like it was in most of the internet time watches that Swatch made, where the normal 12-hour or 24-hour time is in the center of the watch, and then somewhere off in the bottom or top or corner, there's the internet time displayed. So you get both. And then it has normal digital watch stuff of like a timer and an alarm and stuff.
Yeah, and it's that sort of traditional ruggedized watch look.
Yeah, this one's kind of just a boring gray. It looks like if Casio made a round digital watch. Okay, so I've got kind of a funky one for this next one. This is the Great Australian Byte. Byte spelled Byte. From 1999. It was made for the Sydney 2000 Olympic Games.
Oh yeah, that's the 90s stuff right there. That's what I expect from the 90s.
Almost the same build as the other one, but the main casing is like a neon green and the band is a deep blue that says Sydney 2000 on it.
Well, band and lugs and everything else, plus of course those reddish orange buttons.
Yeah, the buttons. This is like a Nickelodeon color scheme.
Well, The first thing I thought when I saw this was pool floaty.
Yeah, yeah, pool floaty watch.
But I gotta give him, um I don't want to use the word credit, but for the digital display, that actually looks okay. I'm not really sure why it has the big now pow thing on it. Like in comic books, when Batman is punching somebody, like the big sound bubble that pops up that says pow. Except this says now for, I guess, reasons.
I have no clue what that does.
Regardless, they have in kind of a decent looking Sydney 2000 logo. Otherwise, yeah, this is looking kind of incredibly funky.
I mean, this is pretty cool. I like this one. All right, so now I've got another one. This is the Webstream Green, also from 1999.
We're giving Swatch far more web traffic than they've had in like years. Okay. This is, oh my. The closer I look at this, the more wow.
What kind of monstrosity is this?
The watch itself, like the physical watch, well, it's a combination of not terrible, but then also terrible. The buttons look really hideous, but the rest of the watch is maybe sort of okay. I mean, it's not good. It is. Yeah. This is not high fashion or anything.
Yeah, this one has like a metal band, and the watch frame is also metal.
Is it? But okay, then it has I wasn't sure.
Yeah, I believe that's all metal. And then the middle of the watch has a green LCD screen showing the time, and then also the internet time below that. And I'm not sure what's going on with the rest of the screen with the random text. I'm sure I could have looked up like the manuals for these, but it doesn't really matter.
Well,
mostly just looking at the watches in awe.
It looks like it's probably a phases of the moon, or maybe a sun position kind of thing, something to
like
that
effect. Sundial.
Well, not a sundial, but like where in the sky the sun might pass over.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. All right, so I've got another one. This is the Moon Orbit 4 from 2001. This one concerns me. I don't like this one.
Oh no! Oh,
dear. I don't like it.
That's just okay. That's a choice. All the numbers are. It seems like they're supposed to be wrapping around the edge of the watch, but they're not. Like they're a little almost randomly placed.
Yeah, this is another digital watch with a round screen and frame, but the numbers are curved to sort of match, go around the edge of the screen, but it doesn't entirely do that, probably because it would just be completely unreadable. But it kind of just looks like they threw some numbers onto the watch. And I don't know if I've ever seen like one of these digital LCD screens doing like misaligned numbers.
Yeah, looking at the 24-hour display, those look like they're kind of somewhat aligned with the shape of the watch, or with the display. The internet time, it is clearly not. Like those are oriented just simply different. And I guess maybe if they continued out further, if it was more than just the 3 digits there, and they went all the way across, I guess maybe they'd look more properly aligned. But since that's not there, they just look wrong.
Yeah, I don't like this. This makes me uncomfortable to look at.
Also, not that it wasn't a given, and I feel like it's weird that I didn't immediately comment on this, but I just have to point out the bezels on this thing. For anybody who is used to modern anything, you're used to bezels that are at least reasonable. The bezels on this thing are, I would say, crazy. About 50%. Roughly 50% of the actual face of the watch is bezel. And the display just happens to be the other 50% in the middle.
You know, you know what it looks like now that I'm staring at it for an extended period of time is it looks like a window on a ship.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Like the screen part is the window, and then the rest of the bezel is the metal frame around the window.
Oh man.
Yeah, I've got one more watch. This one is from 2001. This is a Sonic the Hedgehog watch. It has bands that are sort of they're white and they have a blue streak running along the side. And then the frame is like a translucent plastic. So kind of vaguely Sonic, but if I saw this and I did not know it was a Sonic the Hedgehog watch, I don't think I'd pick up on it.
Yeah, there's no actual branding, at least no visible branding. It's just the colors that are at least sort of thematic. Very plainly, this is ugly as can be. It is profoundly ugly. Stuff made for kids typically was ugly, so that kind of tracks. And I think, generally speaking, we can agree that anything that is video game branded was made for kids at that time. And also, well, I guess this doesn't really matter, but I wonder how many kids looked at the internet time and said, "What's that?" And no one could answer them.
Yeah, they just bought it because it was Sonic.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so okay, so those are some of the watches Swatch sold with Internet Time. By 1999, Internet Time was displayed on the websites for CNN and Pioneer Electronics, as well as many smaller sites and personal web pages. The PHP programming language also added Internet Time to its supported date formats. So this got a little bit of adoption. And weirdly, one of the best partners for Swatch in trying to make Internet Time a thing was Sega. Sega teamed up with Swatch to integrate Internet Time in its games and the internet services for the Dreamcast console. I've got a statement from Sega Japan. They said, quote, "We are delighted that Swatch has agreed to join the already long list of world-class brands working in particular with Sega and Dreamcast. The collaboration with Swatch is part of our commitment to bring the potential of cyberspace to games and will enhance Sega's position as the undisputed world leader in online gaming technology. Together, we will be able to offer our gamers a host of other activities which will ensure Dreamcast continues to emerge as the world's leading video games console." Quote.
So what I think we can now safely assert is that Swatch is completely responsible for killing Sega Dreamcast.
Yeah, I can go along with this. The main result of this partnership was a game called Phantasy Star Online that was an online RPG developed by Sonic Team and released for the Dreamcast in 2000, and it used Internet Time. Yuji Naka, the game's producer, who was also the co-creator of Sonic the Hedgehog, said in an interview, quote, "The way Swatch envisioned and created the beat system was really interesting, creating one time for the whole internet. And because Sega is working with Swatch, we wanted to encourage the use of the beat system. The beat system that shows up on the game screen isn't just based on Dreamcast settings. It's sent over the server. And because there are so many different servers in different time zones, it was a bit of a pain to get all that unified. In the Dreamcast case, you can't really assume that the user has set their Dreamcast clock to the correct time. So even if their timer is off, once they connect to the server will correct their time and sync it up with everyone else's beat time." Quote. So they kind of used it for the intended purpose of like, this is a time that is unified for everyone playing this game, and you can coordinate, multiplayer games with it. They also did something kind of fun where there was a gun in the game called the Heaven Punisher that had a special attack that only worked when the first digit of the current beat time was an even number.
Oh. Oh boy.
That's kind of fun. And there was also that Sonic the Hedgehog watch that we looked at. Another somewhat notable use of this was in October 2000. Ericsson revealed the T20 flip phone. and it had an option to display the current time as internet time. And that's it.
So, you know what? I think we need to bring this back.
Okay, so now I need to talk about the Soviet Union. After the Soviet Union collapsed in 1991, the Soviet space program was reorganized into the Russian Space Agency, later known as Roscosmos. This is one of those things. They changed their name several times. I'm just going to use that one. The early days of Roscosmos was very difficult because Russia was going through hyperinflation and recessions throughout the 1990s because it was transitioning from the former centrally planned economy to a market economy. And the space program wasn't necessarily the highest priority. And the space program was also more complicated to organize now because the Soviet Union's former rocket manufacturing facilities were now in Ukraine and Belarus, and the main launch site was now located in Kazakhstan. So they had to coordinate facilities across, new countries that added more complexity and difficulty. And Roscosmos was also in charge of the aging Mir space station, while construction on the International Space Station was ongoing. So they were having some problems, and to sort of keep going, they organized various commercial stunts. They brought a giant inflatable Pepsi can onto the International Space Station in 1996. There were some instances of space tourism. I think this is when kind of the first cases of space tourism became a thing. And then in the late 1990s, several microsatellites were built in partnership between Aero Club de France, the Radio Amateur Satellite Corps, and Roscosmos. And these microsatellites were 1/3 scale replicas of the original Sputnik 1 satellite. They were 23 centimeters in diameter, and they were equipped with basic radio transmitters. These were just sort of small science team projects. They were designed to be able to be picked up by amateur radio stations on Earth, ham radio stations. The first RS-17 satellite was deployed in November 1997, and the RS-18 satellite was deployed in December 1998. And they functioned exactly as they were supposed to. What's kind of funny is that these were microsatellites launched from the Mir space station. So they went up in one of the, resupply capsules, and then I think they kind of just opened the door and shove them out at some point. The built-in batteries on those were designed to last for a few months, and then around that time is when the satellite's orbit would just decay, and then they would burn up in the atmosphere. So don't have to worry about space junk.
Yeah, just all the toxic chemicals left behind by those batteries burning up.
It's fine. It's fine. Okay, so then in April 1999, Swatch revealed that it had reached a deal with Roscosmos to repurpose the last RS-19 satellite, which Swatch now called Beatnik.
Oh, geez.
This is another thing that has 5 names. It was also called Sputnik 99, RS-19, and Sputnik Junior 3. So depending on who's talking about it or what articles you're reading, they'll use one of those names. The intended purpose of the satellite was now to broadcast a series of voice and text messages advertising internet time using radio frequencies between 145.8 and 146 megahertz, which would be picked up by ham radios and radio scanners. The problem with this is that several countries, including the United States, do not allow ham radio frequencies to be used for commercial business or advertising. Basically, this was a satellite that was supposed to be used for amateur radio and various science projects. And Swatch had just come in and be like, we're going to use it for advertising now. It's going to radio broadcast our time from space. Rob Carlson, a ham radio enthusiast, launched a boycott campaign that encouraged people to write letters to Swatch and not buy their products. And this caused kind of an international incident. I've got a snippet for you to read from a Wired article published on April 6th of 1999.
A snippet, you say?
Yeah, it's a large snippet.
Ham radio operators are accusing a Swiss watchmaker of working covertly with the Russian Space Agency to redirect an amateur communications satellite to illegally beam advertising messages from space. As a bizarre marketing stunt, Swatch is planning to broadcast a series of voice and HTML text messages from space using the satellite, which was originally built for amateur radio communications. Right away, I see HTML text messages. Already feeling a little skeptical of this, but okay.
I don't know what that meant.
Ed Mitchell, a radio ham and publisher of Ham Radio Online, an online newsletter, said, quote, "I'd say we are fairly strongly opposed to it. The problem is, this may become popular and a lot of companies will start using this approach. Amateur radio could be overwhelmed with advertising. That's a big no-no." End quote. Swatch is planning to use a ham radio satellite built by two teams of the Radio Amateur Satellite Corp, AMSAT, based in France and Russia, according to documents posted to a Swatch boycott page, maintained by Rob Carlson, a ham radio enthusiast. The satellite, originally called RS-19, was built for experimental and educational purposes. Classed as a mini Sputnik, it's about the size of a soccer ball. It will store and transmit up to 10 messages, each about 7 seconds long. New messages can be beamed up to the satellite every 24 hours. The satellite is battery-driven and will operate for about 30 days. The satellite was transported to Russia's Mir space station on April 2nd, according to a recent American Radio Relay League newsletter. A Mir cosmonaut will reportedly open a hatch and literally throw it out into space sometime this month. But it appears Swatch and the Russian Space Flight Control Center, SCSC, which launched the satellite, made a secret deal to use the satellite for Swatch's advertising. The leaders of both the French and Russian AMSAT teams deny any knowledge of plans to use the satellite for marketing purposes, according to documents published on the Swatch boycott site. In the letters, the AMSAT leaders distance themselves from the project and apologize to the ham radio community.
Yeah, so I just want to zoom out for a second, and we're talking about a watch company causing an international incident because they want to use a satellite for weird radio ads for their replacement for clocks. Like, this is where we're at.
Oh boy. I don't even know. I don't know how you can both do something so innocuous and also so destructively stupid all in one instance, but they accomplished it.
The good news is that the boycott worked. Later that month, Swatch announced the cancellation of the satellite project with a full-page advertisement in the New York Times and Los Angeles Times. So I did track down the ad. I had to sign up for and then cancel the newspapers.com add-on for the LA Times. This full-page ad is also in the show notes if you want to look at it. It just says, thank you, Swatch, in English and Russian at the top. Below the header, it says, on April 16th, the Russian space program and Swatch were to launch the satellite Sputnik in orbit with the capability of sending voice and text messages from people all around the world. Unfortunately, the Russian transmission satellite Helios, a key link with the Mir space station, was severely damaged a few days ago. This has created a situation of uncertainty and made communications to Mir problematic. Swatch has decided to donate the battery supporting the Sputnik satellite to the Mir cosmonauts, who will be using them to run the printer on board, which is the lifeline to Earth, through which the cosmonauts receive their daily instructions and key operation points. To thank Swatch for this gesture, we have decided to publish the messages that had been recorded in the Sputnik memories and that we are now not able to transmit on radio waves. The first Russian satellite Sputnik has a special place in the hearts and memories of the Russian people. The gesture of Sputnik has made Swatch special too.
This does not seem like the type of thing that you would want to publish in America, honestly, but okay.
No, it's it's like an ad, but it's written from the perspective of Russia.
Mm-hmm.
It's very bizarre. And then they have some of the messages on this page, which I believe the guidelines were that it should reference beat time, but not be an explicit ad for internet time or beat time. So it just has some messages like, nobody's going to beat me.
Oh, no.
And let love beat all the wars on our wonderful planet.
Oh, that's so cringe.
So, again, this ad is very weird. And it also wasn't clear if Swatch had the ability to donate those batteries because they didn't own the satellite. They just bought the right to like broadcast from it, which maybe they didn't even have the ability to do that, but that did happen. The satellite was still owned by AMSAT France and AMSAT Russia. According to the French team who worked on this, they informed Swatch that like you can't do this. Like you can't use ham radio frequencies for ads. That's illegal in a bunch of countries, and it's also just kind of not nice. And they asked Swatch to wait for replacement parts on the next Progress cargo rocket to Mir, or just turn off the component that was going to broadcast those ads, so that way the satellite could still be used for its original purpose. And instead, Swatch just asked the astronauts to not activate the satellite. So when they would launch it, it would just be dead. It'd just be space junk. I couldn't find anything disproving the donating batteries thing, but I don't know if that actually happened or not. So the Swatch satellite was released from Mir on April 16th, 1999, and it deorbited on July 30th, 1999. And that was the end of that.
Some part of me thinks that what they probably should have done is, and I wish I was kidding about this, but they probably should have brought it back to Earth and just sold it. Like some weird collector would have absolutely seen this one day and been like, I'll give you, $250,000 for it or something.
Well, I didn't write this down, but I believe there was another one of these Sputnik satellites that was a backup for one of the earlier radio missions. And that was still on the Mir station, and it was left there when Mir deorbited. So I think there was also one more they didn't toss out. So after that, internet time started to fade out. I was going through Swatch's website, and they list 4 watches with internet time in 1998, 6 in 1999, 8 in 2000, 10 in 2001, 4 in 2002, and then that was it. So they might have made others. I'm not really sure. Maybe their website is incomplete, but it kind of seems like it didn't last more than a few years.
I'm assuming those are new models, so they may have also kept selling older models with internet time for a while, but
yeah, like old stock.
Yeah.
Swatch briefly returned to the idea with its Touch 02 watches in 2016, which were kind of smart watches. They were, very basic digital watches that paired with phones, and they had an optional mode to show internet time as kind of like a Easter egg or whatever. But as of 2025, it doesn't seem like Swatch sells any digital watches at all. I couldn't find any that were released recently, and there's nothing on their site. So they're just fully out of digital watches now. You kind of nailed it earlier that it's not a surprise this didn't go anywhere, because even though the internet is this always on network that does kind of ignore time zones, the humans on it don't. All of us, we have something that goes on in personal life or work or something where we kind of need to be on that 24-hour clock. We have to sleep sometimes. And internet time doesn't really solve anything there. Like if I told you like, oh, we're going to do this podcast recording at 800 beats, you'd still have to, open a converter or something and be like, what does he mean by 800 beats?
Well, I mean, it's like any other measurement system. Once you're familiar with it, once you adapt to it, that becomes the normal thing. So it's not the craziest idea. There's no reason why we need to have 24 hours versus 1,000 beats. There's no reason that we have to go by minutes or seconds or any other time span. So what they were going for wasn't necessarily a bad idea. It's just good luck converting anyone. Time is literally, I think, the only measurement the entire world actually got behind.
Yeah, there wasn't really a good reason for this to exist, because if you wanted a time system that is the same globally and doesn't use daylight savings time, you can just use UTC. We already have that. Beats time doesn't really solve anything. The Swatch creative director said in a 2014 interview that he thought internet time failed in part because Swatch moved on from it too quickly, and they also didn't do much lobbying with organizations and governments to actually use it and set it as a standard. But yeah, it just kind of faded out. As a sort of epilogue to this, there was some funny business with Swatch and Apple.
Oh no.
In 2014, as Apple was gearing up to release the first Apple Watch, it did seem like they were going to call their smartwatch the iWatch, but Swatch started opposing Apple's trademarks for iWatch in several countries on the grounds that it was too similar to iSwatch and Swatch, which they owned. So Iceland was one of the countries that rejected Apple's application because it was similar to Swatch's existing trademark. And then Swatch also filed a complaint in the United Kingdom in March 2014. And then in 2016, the UK Intellectual Property Office upheld that complaint, which legally prevented Apple from releasing a watch called iWatch in the UK. So this company made a weird way of tracking time and then caused an international incident with space, and also is the reason the Apple Watch is called the Apple Watch.
I think the more surprising thing is that Apple didn't just say, can we buy the name off of you?
Can we buy you?
Like that too. I mean,
that was probably an option at that time.
Yeah, it honestly probably would have cost less just to buy Swatch. Regardless, yeah, it seems like something Apple could have just thrown money at to work around that issue. But hey, whatever. For what it's worth, I don't know that iWatch would have been a good name. But
so yeah, that is internet time and the Sputnik 99 satellite. What an adventure!
Just imagine today we could be using the Beat system, and Dre would have had to come up with a different name for the company.
Yeah, I was about to say that could cause another trademark issue with Apple. I mean, I like the idea that one random watch company has just like derailed Apple several times as it tries to conquer the world. I like that.
Just look at all the small companies that have derailed countless things. For example, the owner of the site Nissan.com. Yeah, anyone who doesn't know about that, go look into that one. That one's special. But yeah, this is the amount of trouble that Swatch has both intentionally and inadvertently caused is pretty special.
Do you have any plugs before we get out of here?
I would encourage people to come check out my YouTube channel at it's going to be my name. So you can find Cody Toombs on YouTube. And I'm going to have some videos coming out fairly soon focused on smartphone photography and some interesting tech behind smartphones. So, yeah, come check that out.
Yes, go check that out. I can't wait for the video about internet time.
Yes. That may, who knows, that may end up being an Easter egg. We'll see. Watch the videos 2 or 3 times over just to see if you can find the Easter eggs.
Secretly switching one of the phones to internet time. Yeah, and you can find Tech Tales on Mastodon at techtales@mas.to, also on Blue Sky at techtalesshow.com. The links for those are in the show notes. Also in the show notes are all the sources and the watches we looked at, along with links to support the show. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll be back in your podcast feed soon.
Goodbye, everybody.